Today we're going to be drawing outdoors the Enchanted lily pond and mill. So we're starting off with the mill. I'm trying to get a background going, the roof line, and with a number 2 pencil, very light pencil. And here already we're starting with some soft pastel, trying to fill in the background and the mill. So we're going to start at the top. It's always better to start at the top. This beautiful day, working outdoors, drawing outside with the light number 2 pencil. And now we're kind of trying to find the structure of the mill. We're adding in a little soft pastel, and now we're going directly to the dark charcoal pencil. So you have to be careful with the charcoal, even though I do love it. It's very dark, very blendable. So now I'm adding in the soft pastel and the charcoal at the same time, and then I'm going to try to blend them together just to try to catch up and to save some time. So just smearing it with my finger, going around, and this gets everything moving right away because now you already have the light and shadow and structure done. So here's a second layer of the charcoal pencil, and it's pretty dark, so you got to be careful. Here is like a doorway opening, and then there's going to be a lot of smearing of anything that you don't want to look so dark. Okay, so now we're blending, more charcoal, more blending. We have the structure now set. The mill is all kind of set into the background, and now we can add some greenery around. There's all beautiful plants and trees. There's the Long Island Sound actually in the background, and the beautiful lily pond in the foreground. So we're going to try to get some trees done without going crazy painting every leaf on the tree. Just a bit of a suggestion of a tree since it's far away. Now we have the reflection in the pond, which is a mirror image of the top. So as I'm looking at the reflection, I'm noticing the prominent part of it is the roof line of the mill. And these beautiful decorations, these Victorian style decorations on the mill are standing out as a reflection in the pond. So everything that's on the horizon is also going to reflect in the pond. The mill, top of the mill, and so we want to also have a nice line, straight line for the, not, it doesn't have to be straight, but where the top of the line of the pond is, where the reflecting area begins, we want that to be figured out. Okay, so now we have the full pond on the bottom. You want to try to start at the top or the top left, maybe. Some is even more ideal because as you work, you're going to be your hand keeps sliding over the bottom part of the picture, and it will smear it. Okay, so let's add a little bit of a blue reflection. I could see some clouds and I could see some blue in the pond, so that shouldn't be too difficult. They're almost like reverse clouds, like upside down clouds, where the curvy top would now be on the bottom of the cloud instead of the top. Usually there's a line at the bottom of a cloud and then the top on the beautiful days. So we have the line now of the pond. Now we're going to start to see the reflections and the lilies in the water. So now the lilies there's millions of them. So now I'm going to actually have to draw a lot of them individually because looking at, of course, the most famous lily pond painting is Monet's water lilies that I grew up with at the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, has a room with these gigantic paintings of Monet. If you ever get the chance to see them, it's really worth it. They're beautiful. But I don't want to be influenced by that famous painting. Well, of course I am influenced by Monet's water lilies. You have to be because they're so beautiful. But I'm trying to just look at what's in front of me and copy it as accurately as I can and try to get it done in a manner without taking forever. Okay, so now we're still working towards the top. We're going to try to work our way down and come down on the sides. And thinking about also the design and the flow of this water, the direction, and to give depth and lead the eye in towards the center, which will usually I like to leave like a void in the middle, like not anything too eye-catchy right in the direct center of the picture, because it makes your eye tend to move around more and it becomes more narrative, like a nice story telling of what's happening in the picture if you keep the center plain with like a void. Okay, so now here we are. We're doing these little, the classic is like the teacup with the blossom on top of the lily pad. Okay, so now we're working both sides, marking out where the blossoms should be. You could see little light markings. There's some, I'm starting darkening them in, and it's almost like watercolor because you cannot get too dark right away. As soon as you start getting darker, then you have to add the shadowing to the whole picture to make it look uniform. Okay, we zoomed in a little bit on the little lily pad. So you see that you have to make the leaf, you could start it off in green and then you could continue to shadow, put a nice little shadow under the leaf on the water, and then leave the back to fade in so it has a little bit of a three-dimensional look. Okay, so I'm going around now with the colored pencils. Now, colored pencils are great because pencil. So we're going to kind of invent that. I don't really see a water wheel, but since it is a mill, we'll just put it in and I'll kind of work on it a little later. We'll just see where it goes. I don't really like how it lines up right with the roof, the water. Okay, so now we're going to put another island of water lilies in the middle. So we might as well start at the middle. We were coming out from the sides. Now we're working our way into the middle of the picture. So you have to draw the blossom on top in a reverse sort of way where you leave it empty. Like you don't want to put the color right away in the middle, even though I just added some yellow, which is nice because it brightens everything up. So we have the white chalks, a little bit of blue. You have to always be concerned with the reflection before you put anything on the top of the water. I'm looking at a lot of reflections that I would like to get into very detailed, but some of them are kind of dark right now to get involved with. So now we're looking at all the different areas of the picture, dancing around the picture and checking everything out and seeing how many leaves do I actually have to draw. Can I get away with like Monet with some squiggly lines? So you start off with the squiggly lines, and wherever it looks too much like pencil and not like a leaf, then you have to go back in there and make it look like a leaf or make it look like a flower. Okay, so we have like a little more blue if I'm going to put another layer of leaves on top of here. So we'll start with the blue, blending in the blue of the sky, And now we're going to add back to the number 2 light pencil. So the pencils, the number 2 is the lightest, and then if you want to go darker and if you're more confident, you could go to a number 5 or number 6 pencil. But if you want to sketch, like the beginning part of it is sketchy, so we're sketching in a light mark of where the leaf would be, and then you could go in with these colored pencils. Now I can even add, even though I use soft pastel with the blue, I can add blue with a blue pencil and go really in there and define it. Okay, now we're going to go to a darker pencil, which is a little brave of me. I could mess things up with a number 5 in there to get a little bit of shadow, and I did put some charcoal in there, but you do have to be careful of the charcoal that you don't overdo it. So if you're just starting out, you could do everything here with the soft pastel and colored pencils, of course brown and black pencils also, and then I use a little brush to anytime I erase, I have a little paintbrush, dry paintbrush that I wipe everything away. Okay, now we're going to go through the back to the pencils, the Prismacolors. Staedtler has a whole bunch of colored pencils, and any brand should do fine. I like Staedtler, I think. So, okay, here is the center of the island. I have to blend it in a little bit. It's a little too blue. And I do like the way the water is now wrapping around. So now also what's important is the design. So I want to have this circular design where the water from the mill travels down and goes to the left and winds its way around, almost like a winding river, like a pathway to the mill. And the design, of course, is very important to lead the eye in towards the action, where the action is. And okay, so now we're blending. There's some blue in the middle. Now I'm going for mostly yellow to brighten things up, and green if it's not too bright of a green. If the green goes a little too colorful, then I have to kind of knock it down because I don't want it to look like a cartoon. All right, so once you do the reflections in the water, they have to line up with the building on the horizon, and the trees on the horizon have to line up with the reflections in the pond. Okay, so now we could just sort of go through it, darkening areas and bringing in shadows and not working too much on the background. You could keep going and adding more and more detail. But I want to get this done in a timely manner. So we're going to scribble the background, sketchy. The trees are kind of sketchy in the background. You could keep them light. You know, you could keep it. It's not an impressionistic picture. It's more realism, but it has a bit of an fog. It could have like a foggy background. And I do use those tricks to create depth. I do try to fog the background a little bit more than I do see it in reality, because this is a two-dimensional surface and I want to give it a three-dimensional look, where the flowers and the lily pads are much larger, of course, as they get closer to the eye, closer to the bottom. Making them large brings the viewer into the picture more if they do look a little larger when they are closer to the eye, and more contrasty. All right, so now we're looking at the whole picture and it looks okay. It's still a little bit, I don't know, a little bit patchy. I'm going to try to connect the center island of lily pad and blend them in with everything else. So you could group all your kind of like a landscaper would put his plants into islands. You could group them together instead of just having random. So clusters of lily pads together can create a little bit more depth. And of course, shadow in the right spot, blending into the background towards the top, and then a little more shadowy, a little more darker at the bottom. All right, so now we're going to add a little bit of drama and give it a little more shadow to make it look a little bit more of an enchanted garden and the enchanted lily pond with mill. So I hope you enjoyed this drawing today, that you learned something. I'm Paul Petronella. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video. Thank you so much.